Hello, welcome, Lizzie, to the Hotsheet podcast. We
Thank
are
you so much for having me.
we're so excited to have you, and we're just going to jump right in. And you produced a viral YouTube film on Lily Phillips called "I Slept with 100 Guys in One Day," and you got 11 million views. Tell us, who is Lily Phillips, and how did this whole thing come about?
So, Lily Phillips is an OnlyFans content creator and adult entertainer based in London. And she was part of this sort of new movement that online creators were taking to draw more attention to themselves by sleeping with men who were not strictly porn stars and going to events like what you'd have spring break, what we would call like freshers. Basically, places where young people go to party and start to just kind of be like, I'm here, and if you want to bang me, come on in, have a like get in line, basically. Sorry, this is so early for me to already be speaking so crassly. Um, but there's no way to really get around it with this topic.
Oh, no,
Um,
not at all. Yeah.
so she, as part of like a more of a means to draw attention to her OnlyFans, because it's so hard for OnlyFans content creators to actually promote themselves because social media is obviously always trying to take your stuff down. And once you're on OnlyFans, it's hard for people to find you because the app actually doesn't have like a sort of search function. So it's great if you're like a celebrity who already has a high public platform and then you then launch your OnlyFans. But if you're someone who maybe doesn't have that big of a following and you're trying to get into it, it's extremely saturated market. So a lot of people and like a lot of women and girls and all sorts of OnlyFans content creators try to draw attention to their platforms by kind of doing these crazy stunts, whether it's, getting into the Daily Mail by, rage baiting and having some headline about, I was a school teacher and now I make more money on OnlyFans. Or it's doing what Lily did, which was something fairly extreme. She invited 100 men to come and have sex with her one at a time in one day in London. And the content was going to be filmed and put on her OnlyFans. And we filmed the documentary about that specific event and her decisions to make that decision because it's not something that many women I can imagine would ever want to do, but it's something that she said was her fantasy, and who are we to judge?
How did you get access to her?
So I've known Lily for a few years now.
Oh,
At the previous company I was at, I created a format called It's Mutual, which was on Channel 4.0, which is like Channel 4 is a UK terrestrial channel. And then they launched a YouTube channel that was youth focused, which was going to be like, they're going to create original content for it. It was kind of to compete with like the Jubilees and the Cuts, like White Studio, those sort of like parlor game formats. And I created a show for them called It's Mutual, which the premise was if everyone you've ever slept with in your life was in one room, would they be able to guess it was you they had in common?
Wow, that's
wow.
a great concept.
It
It was
actually
sort of
is.
an intrusive thought that came to life. Um,
Wow.
and we did like several episodes. Some of them were like everyone I've ghosted, everyone I've been on a date with, everyone that I want to apologize to. And she was in an episode of like this one other OnlyFans content creator invited people that she'd had a little fun with.
Wow.
Oh my gosh,
Wow.
I love this is so wild. And you're very clever. This is a clever idea.
Oh, thank you. I don't know. I don't know if clever would be the word for it, but that's very kind of you to say.
So you knew Lily,
Yeah.
and so how did this particular film come about?
So as as these girls were getting lots of attention on social media, like as the thing I mentioned before, so it's Lily and Bonnie Blue, who another OnlyFans content creator who's sort of equally famous. Um, they were going to UK freshers events and like looking for 18-year-old boys basically to sleep with. And that was getting lots of attention online. And our team were like, oh, look, we've seen this, like it's coming up a lot. And I went like, oh, I know Lily. So I've filmed with her before. She's lovely. She's super kind. let's get back in touch with her and see if she'd be interested in working with us. And I looked on her Twitter before I got back in touch, and I saw the flyer for, I think it was called Fuck a Fan. Can I swear on this?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
It's going to be really hard to talk about this without being really profane, and I'm already really apologetic about
It's
it.
all
No, you're fine.
good.
No,
You just,
no.
don't worry about it.
So Lily was doing this like we saw this flyer for basically if you're free on the, I can't remember what day it was, day in October. If you're free on this day, come on down, text this number, and we'll sort it out. So then I got in touch with her and was like, hello, I saw that you're doing this. Would you be interested in doing a documentary about it? And she was like, absolutely. And there was no really, the access was like the most easy access I've ever had for any documentary project, I have to be honest.
Wow, that's great. So like in her eyes, it's all about visibility. The more visible she is, mission accomplished.
Exactly. It's that
Yeah.
sort of, every big brand or corporation should be looking to the OnlyFans girls for like how to market themselves, because they're coming up with the most insane stuff, but it's working. It's like they're breaking through now into the mainstream.
Well,
So
Yeah.
it's all about visibility.
but I never
Yeah.
thought about that there would be limitations for them on social media.
Yeah, it's hard to draw attention really to the content you make that is pornographic on social media. Like you can still have like grow a big following, but if you want to really cut into the mainstream, you kind of have to do something to stand out.
Like sleep with 100 guys in
Yeah,
one day.
like doing like yeah, it sort of became the sort of Mr. Beastification of OnlyFans.
Wow. Wow. It's pretty wild that these women are doing that. But at the end of the day, I mean, the two names I know from OnlyFans are Bonnie Blue and Lily Phillips. So something's working.
Yeah, I mean, in that respect, they've done their job. They're on the map. Everybody knows Lily Phillips and Bonnie Blue.
Right. It was one of kind of the reasons we wanted to do a documentary about it as well, because there'd been so much online about it. There's been so much discourse from both the girls themselves and people who hadn't, been there or necessarily met them, but reacting to the content they were putting out there. But no one really knew the degree of truth behind it. A lot of people still thought it was somewhat of a hoax. And some people also might have been interpreting the content they were putting out as, at face value and as fact. Like the girls who were doing this were saying like it was amazing, it was the best day of my life, I had so much fun. So I think I was concerned to some degree that young people were then being fed this content and not being able to kind of discern what was real and what was not. And in the general, we have a problem with young people not being able to tell the difference between porn sex versus real sex. It's not really something that's taught in schools, and I think there's too much expectation on young people to have this sort of media literacy to be able to make that discernment. Like we can all watch Fast and Furious and realize that's not how you drive, but
Yeah.
can we expect young people to watch porn and not think that's how sex and relationships are meant to look like?
Right. So you are growing up in this information age where you're just bombarded with information, news. People get their news from Instagram and YouTube and all over the place. And it's hard to figure out what's real, what's not real, what is factual, what's fake facts. Right? Like it's hard to get your bearings with so much information. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I struggled with it growing up in an age before clip culture anyway. Like, I think I remember growing up watching rom-coms and thinking that, like, my 20s was going to be like Sex and the City. And unfortunately, I'm not calling into this from Carrie Bradshaw's like Greenwich Park apartment, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I know that was
So
so unrealistic. That apartment for her writer's salary is so unrealistic.
I know that one column a week that she just got to like smoke cigarettes and go to brunch in between.
Oh my gosh. I too was obsessed with that show. It was amazing.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I think young people in particular being fed so much content online. And I don't know if you have children, but whenever I've spent time with anyone under the age of 18, they can navigate technology better than anyone.
Oh, they're so good. They're so
They're
fast.
so good.
What was it like filming this? Filming this stunt, I guess we call it that.
It was complicated. There's no real way I could describe it in like one word, I guess, because it was hard because the main goal of this was to kind of humanize her and show Lily for who I knew she was 4 years ago and who she still is today. Is this like very kind, lovely, intelligent, funny young woman who I think a lot of people online maybe weren't drawing the same conclusions from the content that she was putting out there. So that was kind of the main goal of it. But it was definitely challenging to balance the kind of light and the shade, because we weren't there to say like what she was doing was right or what she was doing was wrong. It's not nearly as black and white as that. It's always about the shades of grey. And there were definitely times where I was concerned that we were shining the spotlight potentially in like the wrong place, because it's not something that I think content that is as extreme as this, I don't know if it is helpful. So it was a challenging time for all of us. But at the same time, like when we did film with her on those first few days where she's showing us her sex toys and we're talking about like how much money she made, and that's fun and bubbly and lovely. And as an audience and as a viewer, when you watch that, that's kind of what we wanted people to feel as well. You want them to fall in love with her like we all did.
Did you feel like you wanted to protect her in a certain way?
I think so. I think that was kind of the main theme that emerged for all of us behind the scenes, was just like, are we doing enough? And the main issue that I had as well was worrying that, like, because there was a documentary crew documenting this, she felt like she couldn't pull out of the stunt. So had to make sure that she was aware of that throughout the entire process of filming. And I'm like, the stunt, it would have happened with or without us there. I'm glad that we were there because extra precautions were taken for her safety, in terms of like, without us, she hadn't considered having a security guard. But then on the day she had several, which was great. She hadn't fully thought through the health side of it in terms of STIs. So, and I'm not saying that's all down to us. Like, we can't really pat ourselves on the back that much, but it was our duty throughout the entire process to kind of make her aware of what she was getting into, both for ourselves and for her. And also let her know that at any time, if she wanted to pull out and stop, that was absolutely fine. That was okay. It didn't mean that this was going to be something that was a waste of time, or something that meant that what we were filming with her couldn't become something else.
I was just thinking, like, you came face to face with the filmmaker's dilemma of, should you put a spotlight on this kind of material? And I think all of us story producers and filmmakers bump up against that question, at least, several times in your career. Like, why am I doing this? What am I putting a spotlight on? Um, and it's a tough question because sometimes it is helpful to shed light on a subject so people understand worlds that they don't know about. And in this case, you guys shed light on this, the pressure that these girls have to get likes and to go to the extremes that they're going to in order to stay alive and stay relevant and have fans.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels that sometimes it's like a bit of a race to the bottom, though, in terms of the more extreme things you put yourself through, you're going to kind of just run out. And like with anything, like with what we know from doing even like reality TV, like the viewers just want more, 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 more. what maybe was amazing and dramatic and groundbreaking in season 1 would be so boring to viewers by season 9.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever gone back and watched an episode of something that at the time you thought was incredible. And I realized, like, I think I was watching like the first ever episode of Vanderpump Rules. And I was like on my phone for half of it because it was made in a different era when we weren't kind of constantly competing with people who were watching second screens. We had to constantly be like, hey, over here.
There's also a doc like this about Bonnie Blue. Were you part of that?
No, I was not.
Who's Bonnie Blue?
Bonnie Blue is another OnlyFans content creator who's got a slightly more controversial reputation than Lily because she was one who really prioritized and sort of campaigned with the slogan, I'm looking for barely legal men. Like she was going to like the freshers fairs and the spring break and schoolies in Australia with the view of sleeping with 18-year-olds, which is what propelled her to like infamy. And her and Lily worked together at one of these freshers events before Lily announced the 100 men stunt. And after we filmed with Lily, she revealed that she wanted to then break the record for sleeping with the most people in a day, I believe, or 12 hours, which was previously held by Lisa Sparks, who I think it was like 900 and something. I know. Although like let's also just like preface this by saying like I don't think there's anyone from like the Guinness Book of World Records who's sitting there and like counting.
Yeah.
So we don't really know exactly what these stats are.
Yeah.
Which has to kind of also be, I think, like highlighted when we're discussing these things because we don't know the validity of everything. But anyway, sorry, that was a very long tangent. Bonnie Blue and Lily Phillips both ended up announcing that they wanted to sleep with 1,000 people to break the world record of most people having slept with in a day or 24 hours or 12 hours. I can't exactly remember which one it was. And they kind of entered this, I guess, arms race, like space race of two superpowers going against each other and each trying to be more shocking and bigger and better. And I believe, I mean, I have kind of like stepped away from following that world too closely after the documentary was finished, but I believe Bonnie Blue slept with 1,000 men first.
I mean, how is that
who's the current? I'll say who's the
possible?
current record holder?
Who's the current record holder?
Yeah. Is it Bonnie or is it Lily or?
I don't know, but that's the thing. I don't think we'll ever have like the full truth.
Yeah, and like if a guy goes once, gets back at the end of the line, does he count as another person, or is he just?
That's a good question. So they do use men who wear like balaclavas. So and a lot of the content doesn't fully because the men who are involved don't want to show their face. So I reckon that could be a way that they are bringing up the numbers.
Well, you guys were filming the documentary. What were the men like? I mean, what was going like? Who were these people? Like, where'd they come from? Like, why were they doing it? Like,
yeah, there's no real like blanket answer for all of them. They were all different. The men I met first, so we started at 9 a.m. And the stunt was meant to start at 9 a.m. and we were sort of waiting outside the Airbnb as men started to arrive, and we started to speak to them. And a lot of the men who were there for that slot were very nice. They were men that like I wouldn't be surprised if like I got introduced to them as like a friend of a friend. I guess it's like that wave of people was kind of more of her like super fans. So there was a man who'd flown in from Switzerland who'd spent, I think, nearly £1,000 just on, 5 minutes of sex with his favorite porn star. Apparently there were men from the US, all ages, all sizes. No, sorry, that sounded very phallic. Sorry.
yeah.
Love the details. Details are important.
I think the theme that emerged from speaking to a few of them that we spoke to for the documentary and some of those off screen was kind of the feeling that if they didn't sleep with her, they would never in their life have an opportunity to sleep with a woman who looked like that, which was
Eh,
sad.
Were they unattractive, these guys?
No, that's the thing. I think it says something to a male loneliness epidemic that is happening worldwide, which can manifest in very extreme ways in terms of like the incel community, but can also manifest in just general issues with self-esteem and mental health. Not saying that that is specifically or only affecting men. Obviously, women and people across the gender binary have all those feelings too, but it's something that in this instance was particularly noticeable to me.
I feel like this fuck a fan thing too with porn stars is becoming. I feel like every one of them is doing it, not at this level where they're having 100 of them coming at a time, but it just seems like if you go on X, you see these things, and you always just like, this can't be real. Why would they do this? But this is why, right?
Well, I think you bring up an interesting point because there was a lot of Lily endured a lot of criticism after this film, which we'll get to. But nobody really talked about who were the 100 guys that showed up and walked through a sea of condoms. If you're number 80 and you're showing up, she left all the condoms on the floor, and that guy has to wade through all that. Like, I just have so many questions about these guys. Nobody and all the criticisms seem to focus on them and who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's hard to pinpoint really. And I can imagine like a lot of the men that we spoke to afterwards. So because we lost access to the Airbnb, we originally were meant to be sort of seated there with the camera crew, pulling people, filming interviews before and after. But the Airbnb was just a one bed. It was quite cramped and small. And Lily's team, quite rightly so, thought that men arriving and then being greeted with an entire camera crew would then just turn around and leave. So instead, we were waiting outside of the Airbnb. So as men left, we would sort of approach them and pull them aside and be like, hey, we're filming a documentary. Would you be interested in speaking on camera? I have to be completely honest. When I tried to approach them, I never really got very far. But we've got an amazing male producer called Ben who was able to kind of speak to these guys one to one. And he managed to be the person who convinced them to go on camera. And it was something that I kind of chose to. I was there for a few of the interviews, but for some of them, I do feel like if I wasn't there, we would have gotten more honest answers. I was the only woman in the crew that day, and it felt like maybe they were self-censoring themselves slightly.
Hmm.
Interesting. And why do
Yeah.
you think that they wanted to be anonymous in the film?
Shame. It was all filmed. That all the content was filmed POV, so they would just hold the phone and. Sorry, do you mean in the documentary or in the content that Lily was filming?
I guess both. I mean, in both instances, in Lily's film and your film, the men chose to be anonymous.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting because they're clearly understanding that they have some degree of shame around this, but they've still made the conscious decision to wake up, travel to this Airbnb in Notting Hill of all places, and um, for like I was nervous. I had no idea what to expect. We had literally no perception of what the inside of that would look like, or what the actual day unfolding would look like, what the other men would be like. So I think it would, and we were there for like purely professional reasons. I think it would take a lot for someone to wake up and still go through with it. With like, they only got the address the day of.
Wow. Wow. How many applicants? I think you guys covered it in your doc. Uh, Applicants did you expect? Wasn't there? I'm trying to remember how that went in the doc. It was like you thought a bunch of people, X number of people were coming, and then there's a moment of panic, and then more people showed up, or how did that go down? I can't remember how that went down in the doc.
Yeah, I think So then originally it was like a phone number that you text and you
That's
send a
okay.
picture of your ID just to prove that you are over the age of 18. Um, and I don't know exactly how many texts you got, but I think it was probably 1,000. But then you also don't know how many of those are legitimate people who, who want to actually come, or if they're maybe just thinking they're being funny.
Yeah.
And then on the day, numbers, I think there were busy periods and there were less busy periods. And I think when they felt that when numbers were low, like her assistant said to us in the documentary, that they were encouraging people to bring their friends and text other people and kind of just almost like streetcast.
That's wild. It's so wild to me. Was there a
Yeah.
fluffer on site?
You know what? I've thought about that. There was not a fluffer, and I actually think that it would have been so much better for Lily if there had been. I also think that like having been inside that Airbnb, the atmosphere in there was not conducive, I think, to being ready to just go in there and have 5 minutes of sex.
Yeah.
And
It
that
was like they had like soft porn on the TV screen in like a waiting room area, and there were a few pastries on a coffee table that men would then come, well, as soon as they finished, they'd come in and grab one, and you were just like thinking that, oh,
and that was part of the problem. One of the problems, right, was she gave each of the 100 guys 5 minutes, and some of them would take longer than 5 minutes. Is that right? That was part of the part of the dilemma.
yeah, it's a bit like I think I it wasn't a very well organized event, um, because which I mean I don't blame her team for not knowing how to organize something of this scale, but I do think that more time and consideration should have been put into that. So it meant that some men would arrive in a very busy hour, very busy sort of time period, and would have only 2 minutes or 3 minutes, whereas others would come when there was no one and would be able to have longer, but then also would continue after Lily said, "I'm sorry, your time is up," which which obviously brings up very complicated conversations around her obviously consenting to this before, but still having a boundary violated.
Yeah, that's very confusing. Because she's saying you have 5 minutes, and then they take longer than 5 minutes, and they violate the boundaries that she set. What do you call that? I mean, some people online consider that rape. I've seen some comments that's how people thought of that. But obviously it's complicated.
Yeah, I don't think it's our place to say what that is, but we can say that it was her. She wasn't respected in that time when she was asked to telling them to stop and they didn't. That's not that's not consensual sex.
Yeah, very gray area. Did she orgasm ever?
I don't know. That wasn't um that wasn't something that we felt was appropriate to ask afterwards when because obviously when we got back in, she was quite tearful. But it's hard. I think I've thought about whether if she repeated the stunt not with normal men or as what people who work in the adult entertainment industry call people who don't work in the adult entertainment industry, they call them civilians, which I think is so funny. But if she had repeated this stunt with professional porn actors, I do wonder if the outcome would have been different, because they would have they have such elaborate conversations beforehand around consent, and it's sort of choreographed in a way that everyone knows what's happening and what's going where. Obviously those conversations are cut out of porn, which is why a lot of young people maybe then went to that Airbnb and acted in a way that was brazen or violent. But I do worry, not worry, but I do wonder that if it had been done with people who were professionals in the industry, if the outcome would have been similar or different.
Yeah, that's That's an interesting thought because but part of the appeal, I think, was to just invite anybody. Like, it makes the stunt that much more extreme if you have
Yeah,
strangers involved.
yeah, it's shocking. It
Yeah.
really is shocking. It's like the thought of knowing someone. I think that could be attending that is was part of the discourse that propelled the story to have such a long life that it did. Was, people saying like that when the one Bonnie Blue did her 1,000, there was like video footage of a mother coming to drag her son out of the queue. I don't know whether that was real or not or staged, but it's conversations like that that keep these stories alive.
So did you film with Lily one day, or how many days leading up to the event did you film with Lily?
2 days. We had one day in her home, um, all day, and then we had one day where we just chatted exclusively about the event. And then we had another day of like B-roll, but that was after the event.
Is there any planned follow-ups to this doc? Are you guys gonna follow up at all with either the men or
Um,
her or
I don't think so right now. It feels like um Lily is doing really well, and she's done another documentary recently with Stacey Dooley, who's a British um documentary maker. And that sort of I haven't personally I haven't watched it yet, but I feel like her story is continuing to be told through that. But this film was just exclusively about that event in particular and her feelings towards it. So I don't know if right now we are actively pursuing a follow up, but like I would obviously never say no to it. I think if Josh and Lily want to sit down in a few years' time, I'm sure everyone would be curious to see how they've both evolved following that mammoth piece of content.
The whole event is pretty shocking and extreme, but were there any particular moments that stood out to you as particularly jaw-dropping?
Um, it has to be like when we returned to the Airbnb and we saw her eyes were already bloodshot and red. Um, felt as if there'd been a lack of consideration and care for her as a person from the men who had attended. Like she'd set a certain boundary. She'd said, "Please don't come in my eyes," but they all did. And I think she is such a kind person. She was always like one of the reasons that she said at the end that she was upset was because she felt like she hadn't given the men a good time when she wasn't really thinking about herself and whether she had been having a good time. So that was particularly challenging. In the lead up to the event, um, I had this like sick sinking feeling in my stomach. I just felt like something bad was going to happen, but I feel like we did what we could by outlining all the potential risks to her. Like it was risk assessed, and we like because myself and a few other people in our team are from like a traditional TV and broadcaster background. We have experience kind of following those protocols, but you never know. But what it's going to be like. I mean, I remember you saying that you were interviewing the cameraman from Free Solo. I mean, I can imagine that was a similar experience. You just don't know what you're going to get into. And that's part of the risk of filmmaking and documentary filmmaking in particular, is that you're following the story, and you're trying to capture all these sort of different narrative threads, but you really don't know what's going to be the pieces that you follow.
That's exactly right. I mean, you're on a journey as well and going wherever the story takes you. And I have to say that I've read a lot of reviews and comments and on the film, and nobody criticized the film itself. I think the criticism was directed towards Lily and what is this stunt and why would she do this and all these questions like that. But everybody praised the film and how respectful you guys were to her, and that Josh Peters, the host, seemed to really care about Lily. In fact, a lot of people said that he seemed like the only person to care about Lily in this entire world, because he kept asking, "Are you okay? Do you know about STDs and all this stuff?" So that's a real tribute to you guys that um, you were able to separate the film from what she was doing, and I think that's a very tricky balance to strike as a filmmaker.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate you saying that. It was, yeah, it was hard. It was challenging. It was, especially because like after so the event happened in October, but the documentary wasn't released until December. But in the meantime, press had kind of already started circulating around the event because Lily had been posting content from it, and all of the content that had been put out there so far was, very positive, and then driving more traffic towards her thousand stunt. So we felt sometimes like we were in a bit of a tricky situation, but our only duty basically was to try and just tell the story of what that day looked like for us in the most truthful way possible. And I do think that we achieved that. There was no, master manipulation or franken editing.
Did your team try to uh, document the thousand stunt?
We didn't, because it felt like we'd already told the story that we kind of wanted to. And I do think that like with the thousand, it was the logistics of it were kind of so up in the air. I still don't actually know if she's done it yet, but um I'd be definitely be obviously be happy to keep documenting her in future. But for that particular event, it felt like it wasn't necessary for us to be involved again.
Part of a filmmaker's job is to get into the head space of your character and understand them so that you can, accurately tell their journey. You're slightly older than Lily. I think she's 22, right? So
4,
you're
I think. Yeah.
okay. So you're a couple years older. But you're both in London, cute, similar age. Like, how did that feel for you to be filming a girl, that she could have had a very different path in life, made different choices. I don't know, it's just sort of interesting that you guys are of similar age in London and doing very different things.
Oh, well, thank you for
Both in the
calling me
film
cute.
business, but, different worlds.
Yeah, it was complicated for sure. I mean, there were moments when like I saw her bank account and I was like, "Why am I in TV?" But um
Did it make you wanna have an OnlyFans page?
it did, but then I was like, I was seeing her work up close. I was like, "Oh, I couldn't do what she does." Like it's really not as easy as I think a lot of people think it is. Um
I'm sure
yeah,
it's
I mean,
work. Ugh.
it's extremely hard work. It genuinely like physically, mentally, very hard work.
How
I
much
don't know how much I think it's kind of always natural to draw comparisons between yourself and your subject matter, but I tried to not put myself too much into the story because it felt like that might compromise my job in terms of telling it in a way that was free from judgment and just trying to just understand who she is and show her in a light that maybe hadn't been shown to her audiences before. So I think woman to woman, it was just nice to chat with her about, like silly things like matcha and where she got that top from and what perfume I'm wearing.
It's quite alright. I mean, I think this is tough stuff. I mean, I think I was I was fascinated with the film and horrified all at the same time. Like, it was hard to watch, but I couldn't stop watching. And I think it's so many things. Because part of me is like, is she an empowering sex positive entrepreneur, or is she dangerously pandering to male fantasies? Like, what is this? And I
Mm.
was mixed as a female. I don't know how you felt, Sean, but I felt as a female very mixed about the whole thing.
Yeah, you always wonder too, like this whole fuck a fan thing that's going on with a lot of these women. Does it create stalkers or does it solve the stalker problem? There's obviously safety concerns, when you have strangers coming over, like in this particular stunt, were there security guards in the actual room? Like, can you speak about that, or
There was a security guard outside the
just
door, so the door
outside the
was
building?
closed.
Okay.
Yeah, and there
Yeah.
was one on the door of the property as well. And then I think there were a few maybe who were in the waiting room. So there ended up actually being like a fairly big security team. But yeah, I don't know. It is something that I feel very mixed and conflicted about because it's sort of like that hypocrisy of choice feminism, I guess, in terms of like I'm doing what I'm doing because I have my right to my body and it's good for me, but not thinking about how that might be impacting other women or just how society views women as a whole. But I don't know if all the blame is on the individual. I think a lot of it is kind of at the fact that there's a market for this content and that clearly there were men who wanted to come and engage with this. I don't think that conversations that necessarily point the finger at the porn performer as this sort of like, the sort of freak show are really that helpful because the problem has always stemmed from the way the society views women and the fact that there's a market for this kind of extreme content that mimics violent fantasies. So yeah, it's really challenging. And it was something that, while I was working on it, it was something that my poor boyfriend had to hear me go like on and on about so much in just terms of like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I just feel like I've got a lot of responsibility on my shoulders to tell this story with care and consideration, not just for Lily, but for a lot of the impressionable young people who are going to watch it.
Well, you guys did an excellent job handling the material. And honestly, like, it's tough material. And your host, Josh Peters, he always checked in with her and talked to the camera and said, well, we're not allowed to be in the Airbnb, and kind of walked you through all the steps. And you guys seemed extremely respectful to her and her world and did an excellent job just showing what it is and without prejudice or judgment or anything. You just showed who this girl is and what's happening. And that's a feat as a filmmaker.
Thank you so much for saying that. It really means a lot coming from you.
Aw, well, of course. It's tough, I mean, filming material that is uncomfortable is part of our job, but how you present it is the real craft. Is how are you going to treat that material um without judgment or prejudice, like just letting it be is tough. It's really tough because there was a lot of criticism. I read there were thousands, I think 36,000 comments on the YouTube documentary.
Yeah.
And not all of the comments were kind to Lily. Again, nobody said anything about the film so much as they were worried about Lily. And the theme that came up was people felt like this was an act of trauma, like her disassociation and these feelings that she talked about was a form of trauma, which was interesting. Um, I don't. Do you have any thoughts about that? Or
Yeah, I think that there are several things to pull out of that in terms of I think a woman who loves sex and is very open about her sexuality is something that we're still not really that comfortable talking about. And I feel like a lot of people try and connect the dots in their head by saying you must be in the adult industry or you must be hypersexual because you've been through some past trauma. I don't think that was the case for Lily. She still has a very loving relationship with her parents. And she from what she said, she hasn't experienced any of that kind of trauma. So I think a lot of people wanted to draw conclusions about that based on the ending of the film, when in reality, she was upset at the ending of the film, not because of anything that had happened deep rooted in her childhood, but because the men that day had not treated her with respect. So I think both things can be true at the same time, in that she is a woman who loves sex and loves her career, but that particular event did not make her feel amazing or like she was valued or respected. And particularly for people who work in sex work, I think anytime they let slip that they may not love their job or there might be a downside, audiences are quite quick to say that's because you're traumatized, sex work is bad. You know, we're really not great at talking about these things as a culture. So the fact that she was able to be vulnerable and show that side of her job in itself was a huge, like, we were very, very grateful to have made an environment that was comfortable enough for her to show that side of herself and to be teary, because it's something that a lot of people kind of wait to hear or have maybe already made assumptions about in their head before they've really gotten to know the person behind the career. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
What was frustrating was that the clip of her crying is what went viral, not the full documentary. And a lot of people took that clip out of context to say that it was because of her choice to work in the adult industry, when that wasn't really the case. It was because men had not treated her with kindness or care or respect that day. So, like, we had a lot of right-wing men get involved on the conversation using that clip as their basis for condemning sex work or condemning that women should, explore their sexuality. Notable figures include Ben Shapiro, um, Elon Musk,
Oh, what did
I think.
wait, they commented on this documentary?
Yeah,
What
we
did
had
wait, what did they say?
just what you'd expect them to say, that she should be ashamed of herself. I think Elon Musk made some tweet about how he wishes he feels sorry for that he feels sorry for whoever has to clean the room.
Well, that is true. I kind of agree with that. That room, that scene was, I can't get that scene out of my head when you guys walked in, because Josh walked in and you were right behind Josh, right? And then
Yeah,
and just somebody gagged, and it was just like I cannot erase that moment from my head, and I wish I'd never seen that.
it was our director Tom, who was the camera operator as well, who gagged, and he actually gagged 3 times, but we had to cut them out because it sounded fake.
I mean,
Wow.
I was gagging right there alongside with them. So I agree with Elon Musk. Like, whoever had to clean that room up, I feel bad for them. Who did
Yeah, I
clean
guess
up the room? Who did
I
that?
I don't know. I did feel really bad for the person who owned the Airbnb because I don't think they were aware of what was happening in their property. Um,
Ah.
Wow.
but yeah,
can
it's
you
like I think
describe that scene since you were there?
the scene, which one?
Walking in that room when it was all over.
So we went into the Airbnb once it was over and we'd gotten the clear. We were filming with Lily's assistant, an interview with her on the sofa, asking about how the day had gone in her eyes. while Lily was in the shower. Lily then got out of the shower and came in, and we sort of put cameras down and said, you know, how are you? Please do not feel like you need to do an interview right now. Do you want to eat something? Do you want to just chill? Like, honestly, like, do it at your own pace. And she said, no, I'm all good. Like, let's do the interview now. Like, let me show you the room. So that's when we picked up the cameras again and followed her into the room. And yeah, took it all in. It was sort of like Tracy Emin-esque in terms of the different things and fluids and um, things on that bed. It was also, it was just like, I don't know if you've ever spent like a day in a room, maybe in like an edit suite or something, where you eat lunch there, and then if you go to the bathroom, you come back and you're like, oof, we've acclimatized to this. There's like a weight to the air in this room. That's kind of what it was like. It was smelly.
Wow. The
I can only imagine.
perks of the job, right?
Yeah. Josh was yeah. Don't say I never take you to nice places.
Did you guys have a strategy in how to approach Lily and deal with this subject matter?
The main goal of the film was always just to show Lily as a human being and dig deeper into the person who a lot of people were aware of online, but maybe hadn't really thought much about in terms of besides her career. So Josh was a really good vessel for that, because he's someone who hadn't really thought that critically about pornography and its effect on society before. But he is someone who had done crazy things for viral fame, so he could relate to her in that sense. And we entered the filmmaking process just trying to not trying to push a narrative of our own, but just trying to understand who she is and tell the story of that event in the way that we thought was most accurate, and at least our understanding of that event.
When you say the film team, tell us a little bit about your team. You guys are the Goon Squad? Tell us a little bit about the Goon Squad.
Yeah. It was it's not a great name. I'm going to put it out there. It's not a great name.
Yeah, it's catchy for sure.
Well, Goon has in the last few years I don't know if you're aware of this, has a term used online to mean like aggressively masturbate.
Oh, I did not know that. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very lucky that I work with incredibly talented people. But there was only, at the time of making that, there was only 6 of us. So we had Josh, who is the presenter and executive producer, Ben, who is an executive producer, Tom, who was the director, myself, a producer, and Kat, our editor, as well as Ashley, our production manager. So, and the sort of equal split in terms of people who come from a digitally native background. So we had like our editor, for example, she used to work for Mr. Beast, as well as myself, Ben and Ashley all came from traditional TV backgrounds. Ashley used to be Louis Theroux's production manager. So she's been making documentaries for over 10 years. But because the team is small, it meant that also like lines would blur in terms of like we'd all help each other out. And yeah, I'm very lucky to work with a lot of people who are like extremely talented, but also are my friends. It's nice to like no assholes is a really nice thing to have in a workplace, which I think I don't know about what your thoughts are, but in media, I feel like sometimes you get a lot of those.
You sure
a lot
do.
of egos.
Yeah.
Lot of egos. Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. Are you still with the Goon Squad? You're still part of this?
I'm still with them. Yeah. We do. So the company is like, it's a production company and a creative agency. So there's kind of 3 pillars to it. It's Josh's YouTube channel, as well as original content for external commissioners, as well as branded content. So we're kind of building up each of them as we go.
What is your role there? How'd you find them? How'd you become part of this?
I was super lucky in that I'd worked at my previous company on a hidden camera prank show, which featured the rapper H. I don't know if you know who that he is. He's British. I'd be actually very surprised if you know who he was. But I was working on a hidden camera prank show, who at the time was series produced by Ben, who then became the co-founder of the Goon Squad. So when they were looking for a producer, and we'd already had a relationship, so I got in through nepotism, I guess, in terms of not having to formally apply, but kind of as you do with like a lot of like contract jobs of being like, I know this person and I trust them, so they're coming in.
Yeah, that's cool. What's next for the Goon Squad?
We are currently making another documentary about pornography,
Wow.
trying to maybe not just be the porn people would be great as well. But we went to, it's for an external commissioner. Last week I was at a porn convention in Amsterdam. And that's for Lad Bible, which is a big distributor here. It's kind of like the UK version of Barstool Sports, but they make video content on YouTube as well, which is really popular. And we're helping them make a documentary about porn and its effect on young people.
You guys are the porn experts.
Really trying to like get away from that. We need to go and just do something else.
But you created a viral video. You got 11 million views. I mean, what does that feel like to have your film go on YouTube and get 11 million views and have 36,000 comments and people like Elon Musk talking about your film? Like, how does that feel?
Oh, it was mixed, I have to say. I didn't always feel amazing. I got quite a lot of emails inviting me to church, which was impressive because I don't even know how they got my email.
From random people?
Random people.
Wow.
That's interesting.
I know. And it was really interesting that I've never worked on anything before that has had such a like visible feedback loop, in terms of you could really get sucked into just refreshing the comments again and again. And also then you'd maybe open TikTok and there's someone analyzing it there. So it felt like, and then sometimes it would be brought up organically in conversations when I was at a party. And then they'd be like, oh, well, Lizzie's got to come over here because she worked on that. And so it felt like for a while I was in this microcosm where it was the only thing that really could be spoken about. Also, it meant that sometimes when people asked you, like at a dinner party, like, what are you working on right now? And I tell them, it was kind of like just dropping a bomb, because there's no way that you could then just kind of bounce back to small talk after that, because it's so controversial.
That's wild. I mean, but so early on in your career, I mean, you have a viral video. Like, you'll never, like, that will always be a part of your success in your career. I mean, it's an amazing feat, and congratulations on that. Did you read any of the comments?
I did, and then I think I started to just try and avoid it if I could. I mean, it's so hard not to. Do you guys read reviews?
I
No.
love reviews. I find them
Yeah.
fascinating.
Really, of your own work?
Even if I'm traveling to an Airbnb, I'll read all the reviews. I'll read the reviews of films, of our work. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I find it informative.
And Sean, you said you didn't.
No, I don't. No, I don't read reviews. Do
Yeah.
you?
Well, I don't know. I think I'm now conflicted with it,
Yeah.
because I've never worked on something that had been so reviewed before.
Yeah.
But I guess like that was probably just because of the subject matter as well.
I mean, I think it's important to not react to the reviews necessarily. It's just information. I think it
Yeah.
gives you some type of information. There's some type of data that's going on there that's interesting. Like my dog got on the Doggist. I don't know if you've heard of the Doggist, but it's a viral.
I know that I follow the Doggist on Instagram. That's amazing.
So, yeah, my dog got on the Doggist, but he happened to it was a bad day for Milo because he wasn't properly groomed and people were just merciless on the doggist. And I mean, we went viral. It was like 100,000 views or more. And people were accusing me of brushing him with a spoon and all this kind of stuff. It was so mean. And I was actually like really upset. It was the first time I had like really, negative, mean reviews. And I just thought, wow, like if you're famous and dealing with these kind of comments all the time, it's tough. Like you shouldn't read the reviews. You should never read the reviews.
I'm so sorry to Milo.
Oh
I
my
hope that
god. These doggist people are horrible.
yeah, I mean that is like such a good example though of like in a nutshell, you can't really do anything in this day and age on the internet without some sort of backlash, even if you're just like posting a recipe. So I guess we probably should have expected and made a bit of consideration and space that there would have been such a large response to it. But at the same time, you don't want to expect that because it feels like you're kind of like jumping ahead of the gun. You're thinking like, I'm already going to be so successful because of this or whatever. So yeah, it came at a bit of a surprise. Had a lot of people from my life reach out as well, being like, oh, I saw your name at the end of that. I was quite surprised. Which was interesting. What was quite satisfying was having people who I used to work with who were not always, how do I say this diplomatically, who, maybe were quite dismissive of digital content or of, female focused content, who then would reach out back to me and say, like, if there's any other future opportunities at the Goon Squad, like, I'd love to be considered.
Well, that's fun.
Having worked in traditional TV and now working in the content creation world, what is the difference? Which do you prefer? What have you noticed?
Good question. I guess there are elements that I love about both. In TV, I think I really like sitting with a story for so much longer and feeling like you have the space to fully unpack it and understand it, whereas everything that's digital feels so fast paced. But with digital, you definitely have more of a freedom to do things in the way that you would like to, that the hierarchies of TV wouldn't let myself, for example, do at my age. So
Like what, for
with it,
example?
just in terms of like being like a producer and an executive producer on that, and um, being able to blur the lines of edit producing and being and researching and writing voiceovers and all of us being able to say like, oh, I'd actually quite like to try a bit of that, and being like, of course, you go and you do that. Whereas I think with TV, it's you have to kind of I don't know what it's like in the US, but you have to really kind of follow quite a strict ladder in terms of getting what getting the experience that lets you in the room. And even like getting in the room in the first place is such a huge hurdle. So
Right, like it's
yeah,
more hierarchical in TV, and
exactly.
there's more creative collaboration in digital. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. It just feels like the lines blur slightly between what everyone does, and maybe because we're just a small team as well, it means that we can kind of lift each other up and also have a go of things that you want to try.
Do you have a preference?
And no, I don't know. I'd like to do lots of different things. At the moment, digital is fun, but I don't want to speak ill of anything in particular.
Yeah, I feel as a producer, it can always be hard when the subject you're filming is the person that's writing the check, because it's like you said, it blurs that line a bit, and it makes it, as a producer, you're trying to get certain story points and such, and they have something in their head that they want to do, and it can just make it tough sometimes.
Yeah, we're lucky that Josh is a nice person.
Yeah.
And he's and despite being like the person on screen, he's not really got an ego. Even though we will, like, it's part of our general company culture to always make fun of him. for having an ego. But don't tell him I said that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm fascinated with the content creator world and the digital world is how nimble and fast it is, versus TV that can take so long to get a concept off the ground, onto the screen. It takes years, whereas a digital concept can take no time. Like, how long did it take you guys to come up with the Lily story and then execute it and deliver it?
I started working at the Goon Squad in September. We started filming with Lily in October, and the documentary was out by December.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That would never happen in TV, ever.
No, exactly. And I think we were quite lucky to have not too many cooks, in terms of we all trusted each other to do our jobs. But it meant that we weren't constantly reporting to some higher ups who then would come back with different notes.
You guys decide what you're going to do and then agree that's what you're doing, and then you do it, versus having to go through a chain of executives at the production level and then another chain of executives at the production company level, and then getting everybody's approval before you make any moves. I mean, I think that's sort of the beauty of the digital space and why it's moving so fast, is because decisions are being made. People are just doing it, making it happen, and getting 11 million views.
It feels like a space where we could be more reactive in terms of like, this is the story that's big now, let's follow it and show what people want to watch. Because as we're exposed to so much content every day, like memes and trends and like just general vernacular age like milk. So stories, like, even like I was talking to some friends and they were saying how like even the fact that Lily slept with 100 men in one day, they're saying that now doesn't sound that shocking because bodies slept with 1,000. So we're kind of all becoming a bit desensitized because we're exposed to so much content that kind of takes away how extreme some of these stunts can be. But it means as well that being able to move digitally with the way that, being able to move quickly through digital platforms with the sort of curve of social media and follow the trends as they grow and basically as they are at their peak, means that we can always feel kind of current and youth focused and fresh.
Well, I mean, the fascinating part of the film is the extreme part, right? I think in every industry, people are going to push to extremes. And I can speak to extremes from a sports background because I was a professional downhill mountain bike racer, and that was pretty extreme at the time. We went, raced from top to bottom like a ski racer as fast as we could. And we were pushing the extremes. We were pushing what we could physically do. And now look at the Red Bull riders. They're jumping off huge cliffs and riding stuff that we wouldn't have ever imagined back in the day. So I think extremes are interesting. It's our playground. Like, how far can we go physically? How far can we go mentally? And reality TV, it was like, how far can we push this emotionally? What can we get out of people? Where are we going to go with this? Because after all, life is just sort of one big experiment. But there's a point where extremes make people uncomfortable. There's like this fascination part of an extreme, like, oh wow, cool, to like, oh gosh, ugh, why? And I find that fascinating. And Lily truly pushed the boundaries into that uncomfortable space. And you can judge her, with your values and decide if you agree with that or not. But it is part of the human experience to push our extremes.
Jen, you are so cool. Every time I speak to you, you say some other fact about yourself that I'm just blown out of the water. What do you mean you're an extreme mountain biking rider?
I thought you didn't know that?
No.
Yeah. That's how and I was in college and I started racing bikes, and became a professional downhill mountain bike racer. I was the first in the first X Games, the ESPN X Games. Yeah, it's how
That's
I got
so
into
cool.
film.
That's amazing. Sean, what are your hidden talents?
I not nothing like that. Nothing like that.
Sean's a porn star. No, I'm just kidding.
Trying to grow the stash, but
No, Sean's a pitcher. He was a college pitcher.
No way. That's so cool.
Yeah.
they don't have baseball in the UK.
We don't, but I am aware of baseball. My mum is American, so I did spend 9 years in the US before I moved to the UK.
Oh, where at in America?
Manhattan.
Oh, okay.
Come visit.
I'm coming next spring. I'll be in New York and DC.
Well, we have to meet up.
Yeah, where are you, Jen?
I'm in the city. I'm in Manhattan.
Oh, yeah, we definitely should meet up.
Yes. That would be great. I love that.
The Hotsheet Pod will have a studio in Manhattan
Oh
by next
yeah,
spring.
we're gonna have a studio by then.
Whoa,
That's so cool.
that's so cool that you're getting a studio.
Well, eventually,
Well,
hopefully.
with our $100 million Wondery deal.
Oh, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, how much did the Kelsey brothers get again from Wondery?
Oh,
Was it like
100 million, I believe.
100 million? Yeah. Fuck.
Yeah.
I just need like a tenth
worth
of
of a Taylor
that.
Swift.
I'm good. Yeah. Speaking of money, um, you guys got 11 million views on YouTube. Did you make money from YouTube? How does that work?
We didn't make a profit or anything on that video because it got demonetized because of the nature of the content.
What? Really?
Isn't that
Yeah.
that's frustrating?
I mean, I'm not the best person to speak on it because I don't fully understand it myself and it's not really my role. But I think if something gets flagged as inappropriate, but YouTube makes the decision for you to not earn any money on that video.
Wow. So you did not earn a cent on that video?
No, we did earn some money before it got demonetized. But I think it was like a week it was up before it got demonetized. But we didn't do this project to make money on it. Like there was no brand deal or anything like that featured in the video. It was done for, I guess, of just a way to flex our muscles. It was Josh's also first documentary. So it was done as a way to kind of establish ourselves creatively rather than financially. It also just felt like with the subject matter, I think it'd be tacky to suddenly cut to an ad read for BetterHelp or like
Yeah.
HelloFresh or something.
Although some Febreze might have been a nice advert for
Febreze,
you.
Durex, definitely. Maybe some lube.
They talk about
Electrolytes.
pastries. You could have gotten some pastry sponsor. Airbnb.
Oh, yeah.
You could have
I
gotten a
do
lot
think
of
about the
sponsors.
Airbnb owner every now and again. I really hope he's okay. And I really hope he's not aware of what happened.
Oh gosh. So tell us, you're part of the Goon Squad. Tell us about Josh Peters, because he started the Goon Squad, right?
Mhm.
Who is he? How old is he? Tell us about your squad.
He is 32, turning 33 next week, I believe. And he is, or is he 30? I mean, he's in his 30s, is what I will say for you to have a nice soundbite. And he started out as a YouTuber in the early days of YouTube when, it wasn't as like crazy saturated of a market as it is now. And you could make videos of yourself just like in your bedroom doing a silly challenge and that would get 1 million views. And then as he grew up on the internet and his content evolved, he became more of a figure in like hidden camera prank space. So one of his biggest stunts was on Katie Hopkins, who I don't know if you know who she is. She's kind of like our British equivalent of, I don't really know who to draw comparisons to, but she's a woman who says extremely controversial things online that are very political in terms of very against migrants, people of color, basically any minority. She doesn't like them. And the first video that really like took off for him in that space was about Katie Hopkins, and he basically flew her to Prague and told her that she was accepting an award that was the Commemoration for Unifying the Nation Trophy or something, which the acronym of that is cunt. So she got the award for cunt of the year.
Oh my.
I
Wow.
really recommend the video. It's amazing.
What's it
because at the
called?
I think it's called like We Flew Katie Hopkins to Prague to give her a fake award. It'll be on his channel. So he was doing that for a while. And then like as you get older, like he pranked some amazing people, like God, who's Tucker Carlson most
Oh
recently
yeah.
managed to convince him that um his former colleague was like someone who worked for the royal family and was the spokesperson. Who, do you remember when that photo came out of Kate Middleton, and like it was when Kate Middleton was missing, and it was sort of photoshopped badly, but
Oh.
managed to convince Tucker Carlson that he was a representative for the royal family, and get him to be interviewed um on his show. So he did a lot in like the prank space, but then as you get older, I think like you can do pranks extremely well. And everything that he did was really good and of a really high quality. And it was kind of a thing that you would see, Sacha Baron Cohen doing, but just, in like a digitally native format. But there's always a degree of punching down when you prank. And I think he felt as he got older that it was getting a bit mean spirited. You're kind of always looking for someone to be the butt of the joke.
Yeah.
So then he wanted to get into documentaries, which is when I joined the team, and thus Lily Phillips and her story came into us.
I have to watch that video. What was that video called? The flying
I'll send it to
woman.
you afterwards.
Yeah,
I,
please do.
yeah.
That's I love a good prank. So that's amazing.
Have you worked on prank shows? I find them so
I have
stressful.
not worked on one, but I'd love to do one.
Like, very like it came in handy a lot actually when we were doing the Lily documentary, because a lot of us in the Airbnb was hidden camera filming, in terms of like, like you take your phone and you're sort of crossing your arms like this, and you're saying like, oh no way, how is that? Which like a lot of our team had a much better experience in than I did, because everything I filmed ended up being like a selfie of myself, like like a proper boomer. But yeah, it is a skill to master.
I love the Goon Squad. I love the idea of you guys, like, between 27 and 32, just making content and saying, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah, it's fun. It's very fast paced. It's like a sort of startup vibes, I guess, but I think it's something that keeps growing and hopefully will continue to do so.
And you guys are doing content branding as well?
So yeah, we also get work from clients who want us to make content for their brands that, that doesn't just feature Josh or anything. It's standalone advertisements. So kind of meant to cut through the market. So we've always pushed things a little bit further. So like we got we one that comes to mind is a beer brand in the UK got in touch with us and wanted us to advertise that their new beer was unpasteurized. We were all sort of thinking around being like, okay, I didn't realize that most beer wasn't pasteurized, but I don't know how to, when I think of pasteurization, I think of cows and milk. So we went to a farm with a close-up magician who was wearing a camelback full of beer underneath his like overalls and had a tube coming all the way down his arm into here, and pretended that he was milking a special beer cow, that beer was coming directly out of the cow so he could pour pints for people and just hand them over. So that's the kind of like branded content we do. It's nothing is ever too serious. It's all very like fun and silly. And as the TV landscape has died kind of in the UK, brands have kind of stepped in as a place where you can do original content with money behind it.
Yeah, that's great. That's
I love
fun.
it. You should definitely
You,
reenact.
you also just mentioned there that the TV has really kind of died there in the UK. Can you talk about that a little bit? I know here in the
Yeah,
US, we're struggling too. It's how has that kind of changed there?
there was a big advertiser pullout in the UK, which meant that a lot of production companies had to close, unfortunately. So, for example, the company that I was working at when we first met, Jen, that no longer exists.
Who were they? What were
Because
they called?
Future Studios. Well, they still exist, but not in the way that they did when I worked there, in terms of making external content for streamers and broadcasters. And it's pushed a lot of people who work in TV into spaces that like are quite uncomfortable, and just because like a lot of the networks are keeping shows that have been filmed in like a backlog, because when they release them they'll have to pay the production companies, but it means that if they don't release them they don't have to pay the production company. So it kind of means that all these indies are closing and dying. And it also means that like the other day I was flipping through the live channels, which I very rarely do, but I was just curious to see what's on prime time at, like on Thursday night, and almost everything was a rerun. There was like Ramsey Kitchen Nightmares from like 2007,
Wow.
which felt like that just wasn't. It just felt like it felt sad because everyone watches content. Everyone wants to come home after a day of work and relax with like the new show that everyone's talking about. But a lot of the way that we consume content is changing because of, digital content as well. But it's been an interesting thing to adjust to. How have you guys found it?
Well, I find
What's
it.
it been like in the US?
Well, I was gonna say, all of I just got back from the Unscripted conference down in Los Angeles, and everybody in this space is all the work is going to London or to the UK or to Ireland, and then here you say there's nothing there. It's like, well, then where's all this work
Oh
actually at?
God, maybe I'm just out of touch because I've been at the Goons board for a year now, so I haven't been looking at like the TV jobs boards. But that's interesting. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that they're working. I must just be like I must be only like in the small niche that was like like kind of traditional broadcaster content that was made like for a UK audience.
Well, I mean, honestly, you were probably very wise to, I don't know if it was by choice or by circumstance, to leap from traditional TV to digital, because it does seem that digital is taking off. There's more opportunities for creation there, and the TV world is contracting.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how everything evolves, because like I don't think it necessarily means that like one rising means that another one will fall. I think that I like it'd be my ideal world for like to work at a company that does both, and I'd love to myself continue to do like digital things as well as more traditional things for broadcasters and streamers.
Do you yourself ever aspire to have your own channel and be in front of the camera and do that sort of thing?
I don't think I would ever do it. It's definitely something I've thought about, and I'm so grateful that I did not grow up as like a 12-year-old with TikTok, because I would be so mortified by like my digital footprint, that what I'd be posting there. Um, I don't know. It's something that comes up every so often. I don't know if I want to be myself on camera, if that makes sense.
Totally
It's
makes sense. Yep.
it's hard to um it's hard to kind of make the distinction sometimes between like a person's persona and who they are as like just a day-to-day person who's in line for a coffee, which I feel like sometimes means that a lot of people draw conclusions about who you are as a character because like that one time they saw you on a bad day, you weren't super polite. So yeah, I don't think I would ever want to host a documentary because, well, I mean, never say never, but it's not something I would do in that capacity. But I'm currently in like, a writing and filmmaking program, which is more about obviously scripted things. And I think I'm going to be in my short film next year. So that will kind of be my first time in front of the camera in that capacity. So we'll see.
I can go on, like if you give me a script, I can go on and do anything because it's not me, right? It's I'm that other person. But being me, so I get it. But let us know when you have that script out, your movie out, and we'd love to watch it. Talk about
Oh,
it here on
thank
the
you so much.
talk about it here on the hot sheet.
You have many friends that have their own YouTube channels and are personalities.
I thought you were asking if
Mm.
she had any friends.
Do you have any friends, Liz?
Do people like you?
Do people like you? You know.
I don't really understand your vibe. No, I don't actually. I don't really have many friends who are like content creators. I think Josh is the only person really in my life who's like he's a colleague and a friend. Um, and no, but he's barely himself like a content creator. It's not like when we're walking to get a coffee, he's vlogging. I think I'd find that a little bit like intensive. Also, like I don't know if you've ever been somewhere where you see someone vlog. It's so weird. It's just like when you're like just walk, like I was in a restaurant once in LA and someone next to me was just suddenly like, "Hey guys, what's going on? Today we're getting, you guessed it, this food." And it's like, "Oh my God, you're so loud." And then like they put the phone down and just be like,
I feel like being like the spouse or the girlfriend or the boyfriend of a vlogger would be so annoying. Like everything that you do, every dinner you eat and whatever is filmed and vlogged and recorded.
it's
And
it is hard. You have to remember that like when you're seeing that really romantic moment, like they set up their tripod and their ring light.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
like which just takes so much of the romance away from it.
oh my gosh. Yeah, you don't see the behind the scenes. See, that's what we're doing. This is the people behind the story. So we get to know
Exactly.
all those gritty details.
As a young filmmaker, you've done a lot of stuff. Like, what's your favorite part of it? Is it development? Is it being out in the field producing? Is it do you direct? And where does Lizzie have the most fun?
That's a nice question. I think I've got most experience in development because I got my first job out of university in 2019, December of 2019, and that was a 6-month gig at a development company. No, 6-month development gig at a production company, and then during that time we went into lockdown. So it wasn't like I could really move around much and explore other parts of the industry because for the next 2 years, that company thankfully kept me on and gave me work, but I couldn't really explore much outside the realm of development. And for that company in particular, they were doing a lot of male skewing specialist factual for the US cable networks, which wasn't really like my jam. But like, engineering shows and alien hunting shows, I'm now very well versed in. Um, so I've got most experience in development from that, but I don't know, I love the creative process of um, seeing how a story is going to evolve once you like are in that interview and you'll hear that person say that phrase and you're like, that's it. That is like the thesis of our film. And you pull that narrative thread out and then you see what other elements you can add to it from the other things you filmed. I think that's sort of the part of like logical piecing together of the puzzle that I really like, of like connecting those dots. It can also mean sometimes killing your babies in terms of like you have that amazing part that now has to be left on the edit, like cutting room floor, which is horrible. Like we had that so much with Lily. There were so many things that we wanted to include, but if we wanted to tell that story in the most like clear way, we had to kind of keep focused. But I don't know. I think for me, writing is the goal, writing and producing and maybe even performing. So I'm hoping that that is going to be what I do next. But you never know. I mean, I never thought, like, last year after I got made redundant, I didn't think that I'd be working again, to be honest, because I've been applying for jobs for so long, and it felt like I was going nowhere because the industry was just so difficult. And then managed to get onto the Goon Squad, and I couldn't have possibly foreseen the scale of this work that we've done, and also just how fun it could be to make something that is very serious, and then also make something that isn't that serious, like beer coming out of a cow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. And you said you're getting into writing. Does that mean scripted? Is that
Yes, like screenwriting.
and that's what you would like to do ultimately? That's your dream?
I think so. I think it's like it's definitely an itch I want to scratch. Whether that means like abandoning unscripted, I'm not sure. But in an ideal world, I'd love to do both and do it all. Be a bit slutty, I guess. I
That's
did 100 projects in one day.
that's the theme, right? That is the
Yeah.
theme. Um, yeah, what is
You
what
should write that comedy, actually.
you should. You
How
should.
do
That's
the
a good one.
scripted comedy version of 100 Guys in One Day.
I am actually already working on it.
Oh, good, good. That's great.
Oh, that's
That's good.
amazing.
Are
And
you gonna play Lily?
No, I don't think so.
Like,
what was your biggest
kick.
takeaway from that film?
My biggest takeaway was, I guess, learning more about the adult industry and how much shame and stigma there still is in doing a career that so many people don't do and so many people have done for centuries. I think one of the biggest learning curves was the virality of it and the reaction that we got in terms of people taking the clips out of context and not fully discussing them with nuance, which I think our main goal for the whole film was just to show that a few things can be true at the same time. We're not saying anything is particularly right or good or bad. We're just showing it as it is and showing that people are going to feel conflicted and different about different things. And the frustrating part of people taking the viral clips out of context and then making these like hasty generalizations or conclusions, basically taking correlation as causality, was quite frustrating. And it felt like I found myself at times being like, well, if you just watch the documentary, then obviously I'm not going to do that. um, but yeah, I guess my biggest learning curve of that was like how rare it was and remarkable it was to have someone in the adult industry break the fourth wall in a way and like allow people from outside the industry to see that you can be vulnerable and you can learn on the job and you can like work through your feelings about it while still asking people to recognize that you're a human and that you have agency as well. So maybe by going to those extremes, Lily showed the world like how difficult and nuanced that world of sex work actually is. And I hope maybe some people would go away from it and have more respect for the people who are in the industry, as well as thinking critically about the people who consume that. But maybe more people who are in that world should be brutally honest about the complexities of their job, because it's still something that a lot of us struggle to speak about. I know that I don't know if you guys have ever felt this way when you have like a cool job, but it can be sometimes that like when you complain about work, people don't take it that seriously. But when you're a sex worker or someone who works in the adult entertainment industry and you complain about your job, people immediately want to say, well, it's because you're doing that job that's not good for the world because you've made a bad choice and you're a bad person, which we don't get.
If you could do things over, would you do anything different? Were there any moments that you cut that you wish were in? Would you have changed
Mm.
anything, basically?
I would have loved if we could have had access to more of the men to interview, but unfortunately, they didn't want to be on camera, which I think in itself speaks volumes.
Yeah, sure
So
does.
by not being on camera and by not giving an interview, even if, you know, the men who were on camera or the men who did give an interview all had their voices distorted, or some of them even had their voices played by an actor. They didn't show their face. Everything was blurred. Anything that could be identifiable was blurred, but still refused to speak to us about their experiences means that we have to make conclusions for them, which I think most people aren't making good conclusions. So I would love to have focused a bit more on them, but at the time that wasn't a scope that we had access to, unfortunately. And I would love as well if I could have been able to do my job in that sense and not have my gender play a part in it, because it felt like approaching those men and having them in the interviews as well, they were maybe not giving us the whole truth because I was there. And when I wasn't there, the interviews that we got were more fluid and more revealing. So, but then I mean, we don't know exactly what that is, but you always have a bit of a hunch, don't you?
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that they, you can assume that they were conflicted to a certain degree as well if they were anonymous in, you know, with you guys and in Lily's film. You can assume that perhaps that they were conflicted as well, and they're going to talk to. I mean, I don't know. I think gender does play a part in storytelling. I think a girl is going to get a different story than a guy sometimes, especially with this kind of material.
Yeah, definitely. We're all different versions of ourselves around different people as well. So
Absolutely. And gender definitely plays a role in that.
yeah, there was one man I really remember approaching as he left the Airbnb who immediately covered a wedding band.
Whoa. Yeah. That's why he doesn't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, we had a security guard with us that day who was called Michael, who was amazing, and he's like genuinely like a talented producer as well as just being like security. And he would, as men, when we were first sort of getting into the flow of like how we would approach the situation, because we had to really think on the spot. As men would leave the Airbnb, we would try and track them down to speak to them. But Michael, being, in better physical shape than all of us, would just beat us to it and chase them faster than any of us could, which meant that all these men would leave already feeling vulnerable and then be chased by a security guard who's quite intimidating looking. So then that also wasn't working.
and then being asked to be on film.
Exactly.
Wow. That's amazing. Have
with
any of
with this doc, did you guys try to get distribution and try to do something like that?
We did have some conversations from like with some of the big streamers got in touch, which was very flattering. But it felt like such a digitally native story. Like it was like all of this had taken place online. Lily's like journey before us maybe mainly played out on TikTok. That it wasn't something that we felt could really add that much. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I wasn't included in all those conversations. If there was a big paycheck with it, probably would have done it.
Well, it's just disappointing because like those views are still coming, whether it's monetized or not. So when YouTube demonetizes that, YouTube's really just, in my opinion, they're just keeping the money, right? I mean,
Yeah,
somebody's, it's because they're still going to play the ad before and the ad after, and
yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
Oh, right. So if YouTube demonetizes your film, there's still money being made and that goes to YouTube? Is that right?
I'm just spitballing, and I don't know that for a fact, but there is like when I went and watched it, they played an ad before it, and when it ended, there was an ad after it, and somebody's making that money. An advertiser paid for that spot, and because they demonetize that, doesn't mean that money's not being. I mean, the advertiser still paying, or are you're going to tell me that and then, again, we're spitballing here, that the advertiser doesn't pay for that spot because it's demonetized? I mean, somebody's making money. YouTube's making money on it. I mean, that's just the fact, as far as I'm concerned. We'll have to investigate that, Jen, actually.
Yeah,
But
that's interesting. I mean,
be,
I've never really thought about that.
Yeah.
because there's so many things that disqualify, like for demonetization. Like just this week at this conference, it's like all the little things, obviously music, but like Lizzie was saying, like, she's at a restaurant and the person is like, oh, hey, look what I'm eating today. But if there's something in the background, noise wise, or a person or a brand or something, any of those little things can demonetize a video. And so,
So wait, let's list all the things that would demonetize a YouTube video.
Copyrighted material, obviously.
yeah.
Anything profane or that they feel is not suitable for children.
Porn.
Porn,
Yeah.
I think, would just be removed.
Threats, threatening content, like if you're, plotting, threatening, that sort of stuff.
I think also like anything that's anything that could be seen as like violating an advertising standard. So like if you to include a brand deal in your video, but you don't follow protocol correctly, that could then also be demonetized.
And how did they categorize Lily's film? Like, why was that demonetized? Like, what was the specific reason?
Inappropriate content.
Inappropriate content. So you
Yeah.
can't just put anything on YouTube.
I know. Yeah, but like in a way I think that film is important for young people to see as well, because it's like it's part of sex education now, whether we like it or not. There's these like girls going online and having these extreme stunts. This sort of this new wave of pornography that seeps into social media. It's affecting young people. And so being able to sort of peel back the curtain on that and see what it actually looks like when you aren't just seeing it clipped up into a highlights reel is important.
I thought that was the most beautiful part about your documentary was, like, seeing that behind the scenes stuff, seeing that moment when she comes out, she's crying, like she's, you know, that's the truth, right? It's not always the highlight reels. It's not always the money, the custom blue Lamborghini. It's that moment that you show in your doc. It's very powerful. It speaks volumes.
But I think the controversy is that, on the one hand, and I know this from my experience with Teen Moms and, the 16 and Pregnant show on MTV was, are you showing what it's like to be pregnant, or are you glamorizing what it's like to be a teen pregnancy? And that issue, we were constantly up against that issue with that show. Um, and I think there's a distinction between the 16 and Pregnant show, which did show what it was like to be a pregnant teen, versus Teen Moms, where they were making lots of money and famous and stars at that point. And it was glamorizing what it was like to be a pregnant teen. And it was a very fine distinction between those two things. Um, and like you said, the audience doesn't always watch the whole film and have a deep analysis of it. They might just make a snapshot decision and say, oh, they're glamorizing, you know, sex and having sex with 100 men. That's making that appealing in some way, versus showing like, no, this is what's happening, and we're going to show you what it's like and how hard it is. And Lily was willing to be vulnerable to really truly show that experience.
Yeah. And we're so grateful to her for that. She got to watch the film before it went out as well and give us her comments on it, because I think we were worried that she might we were like obviously like so grateful to her for sharing that with us, but it does maybe burst the bubble for some of the men who subscribe to her content in a sense. So what was important to us for her, like duty of care, was having her constantly aware of what was happening and what was going out and how she was being portrayed, because that's the issue with documentaries as well. You're telling someone else's story, and like if you try and retell someone's anecdote, I always do a bad job.
And how much money is she making? Because that was sort of blurred out. Are you allowed to say
Yeah.
how much she was making? And did she make more after the film?
I know her income trebled. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and I'm sure it's already like going up astronomically as well. Because she's broken into the mainstream, which is why these girls do these stunts as well. It's not just in the world of porn that is talking about them. She was covered by every major newspaper. My dad is Austrian, and he sent me an article about it from an Austrian newspaper, and was like, "Oh, now I understand that you were working on something kind of big." And I was like, "Yeah,"
Right.
but she, I don't want to say exactly how much she was making, but it's more than most people per month. She was making from OnlyFans more than most people ever make in a year.
Well,
And
while you were filming, she had a staff of like 9 people, I think it said it was?
Yeah,
is her mother on her staff? I read that in one of the comments that her mom works for her.
I don't know that to be fact, so I wouldn't want to speak on it. Um, I think people maybe drew some conclusions based on her mum helping her with taxes or something, but I'm not entirely sure. I think in the Stacey Dooley documentary, which has come out recently, I think they do speak to her parents.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, some of these crazy comments, people are like, her mom works for her, therefore she's being trafficked. It's proof that she's being trafficked. But I don't know how they know if her mom works for her or not.
I think the human brain, we want to make these like neat connections to understand why someone would do something that we can't understand. And with this film, like even us being there and working on it for so long, I still don't really understand why she would do that, to be completely honest. But that's it's up for everyone's interpretation, and that's why we made the films, because we're never going to fully know. Only she knows.
A-
But
Actually, yeah, what is your takeaway from her? Like, did you learn anything more about her? And do you think that she was being genuine and saying that she enjoys this? This is her fantasy. Like, she wants this too. Or what was your takeaway about her and that desire?
um, I mean, first and foremost, like like filming, working with her, only reconfirmed what I already knew, was that she was a lovely, kind, genuine, funny person. I don't know if I'm in a position to make comments about why she would do it, but I think that it kind of touches on what I was mentioning earlier, in that I do think that she's someone who loves sex, loves her line of work, but that day was not enjoyable. But kind of not because she doesn't love sex and she doesn't love her work, but because it was poorly organized. And the men who took part didn't treat her with respect.
This could be fake news. I had read that she recently was proposed to, or she's getting married, or she's engaged, or is that fake news?
I don't know.
Okay.
This is kind of what I was saying earlier. It's like these girls are so good at marketing themselves that
Yeah.
like there's just like another thing to be like, oh, I'm like, if she was like faked a pregnancy, um, which got her into the headlines, but that was like for a video as well. Like it's something that you can kind of, what the term that they use is rage bait.
Yeah.
So um you make these sort of clickbait headlines through the powers of rage. So I don't know. I mean, like good for, like, I'm happy for her if she's engaged or getting married.
We shall see. It'll be
Yeah.
the next film, the next Lizzie film.
I don't know. I think that Lily is probably in a good position now to tell her own story. She probably doesn't need us to do it for her.
That's interesting that you gave her review rights. Did she have edit rights as well?
She didn't have full edit rights, but she had, but when, if she flagged something that was maybe not I guess like there was like a few things that came up that might be revealing about her, like where she lived, or things that might like, or like her taxes or like stuff like that. It was very much like when it came to her like personal, um, like privacy, that was kind of more what she was reviewing.
And was she happy with the final film?
Yeah, she said that she loved it over WhatsApp to us. We had to treat her with respect when the cameras were rolling and not rolling, and having her involved in the post production and being made aware of what was coming was part of our duty of care.
Well, congratulations to you for
Oh,
making a film that created quite a stir.
it was, yeah, it was a lot. I have to say, Christmas dinner was weird that year.
We're like, so what were the questions they asked? What was the questions your family asked you?
Oh no, my parents were very very kind and supportive and um curious about the whole thing. It was like when I went to go to my boyfriend's family for Christmas, and we went to like a neighborhood Christmas party, and someone was like, "Yeah, I heard you're a producer. And what if you worked on anything I know?" And I was just like, "Oh, it's just not. This is not the space." So I just said no, nothing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That is wild.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's complicated. I think when when you first hear the headline, um, that a girl wanted to sleep with 100 guys in a day, you have like a body reaction to it. You're sort of like so shocked, which is kind of what we wanted to do with the film as well. We wanted it to be like you have the first moment of shock. You're like, how could this girl who looks so normal, who's so nice, want to do such a thing? Which is like the reaction that all of us have when we first heard about the story. And then as you go throughout the film, you're like getting deeper into the headlines, you're getting more into who she is as a person beyond the headline. You understand it. And then you kind of get reminded at the end, like, oh, you kind of come full circle in a sense. You're like, oh, that is really what we were here for the whole time. It was something kind of shocking and stunty and not normal.
Yeah, checked all those boxes.
Mm.
I think I was texting with you and we were just checking in, I think, and saying, "Oh, what are you up to?" And you're like, "Oh, I did this film. I slept with 100 men in one day." And I was like, "What?" I think it sat in my phone. I think you sent me the link or told me about it or something, and I sat on that for a while. I just didn't think it was real. I didn't really get it right away. And then I was like, "I should check out Lizzie's work," and I was blown away because I just didn't even know anything about this world, or I didn't even know who Lily Phillips was. Um, and it was yeah, it took me a minute to kind of understand, like, is this real or what's happening?
Yeah, that's it's same with us. Like I think we couldn't really figure out what was real and what wasn't before we started filming, which is like one of the reasons as well for making the film was that if we, as like people who are in the industry, who understand like, the veneer of media, were all confused by it. Imagine being in school and having boys talk about, this girl who's doing this and hearing that and think, oh, maybe I should do that. That was kind of what we needed to really break through to shatter the illusion in terms of my biggest fear throughout the whole thing was that young people would watch this and think that that was normal or what they should expect from sex, because young people already are watching porn and thinking that that is a reflection of what normal sex should look like, a normal gender relationship should look like, and power plays. So when it's something that's so extreme, but it's playing out over social media, you have to worry that not everyone has the sort of competency to tell the fiction from the fact. There was a woman, like after Lily did the before the documentary was released, but after Lily did the stunt, there was a woman who was arrested in Istanbul for trying to recreate it. So we were already kind of seeing the real life impacts of what Lily did around the world, which kind of made us want to speed up the editing process even more.
Oh, did her film of the event air before your film on YouTube?
I don't know. She didn't put it. It's not on YouTube. It's on her OnlyFans
Got it.
because it's like pornographic.
Right. Right. She filmed the whole day, right?
Yeah, so she'd give her phone to the boys and they would film it like POV.
And
Yeah.
so her film lives on her OnlyFans site.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. So I don't know if did you guys watch the Bonnie Blue one?
No, I did not.
The VPN thing was an issue for me. The only reason to watch it though was to prepare for this. And
In that film, they show the sex. So the camera crew for the documentary are in the room when she's doing
Oh,
the
wow.
1,000 Men stunt briefly.
yeah, maybe I'll get to it.
Yeah. Which I thought actually was like, there were some things with that film I didn't agree with. Not in terms of like, well, I had other criticisms of that film, but I actually thought that choice to show the sex, because it was airing on a UK broadcaster that would allow that, was a really powerful choice, because it shows how horrible that room is. It shows how what those men looked like and how they're behaving. It shows how physically strained she is and how challenging it is. And it really doesn't glamorize it. It doesn't let us imagine it in our head and paint it in a prettier way that it possibly could be. Which, like, maybe if I was to work on something like that again, maybe it's something that I would consider. But for our film, it wasn't necessary.
Well, those choices that a filmmaker makes are really critical and how the tone of the film. Like, I think of Werner Herzog's movie Grizzly Man, and the whole entire film is this giant debate about, does he show the footage of the bear eating the bear man at the end, or does he use the audio, or does he use how much of that scene is he going to include in the film? And the whole film is about this dilemma. Do you remember that film? Have you guys ever seen that?
Yeah, it's
And
pretty, yeah.
and just for those who don't know, this guy, I forget his name, but he loved bears and lived in Alaska and followed the bears and felt like they were his family, and he communicated with them. But then he encroached on their space too much, and they ultimately attacked him. And the camera was on and captured, I think, some of the footage and definitely the audio. And so when they retrieved his belongings, they had all this amazing footage. And Werner Herzog had this dilemma of like, well, the stories about this guy that loved the bears, to his end, do we show that? Do we not show that? And that is sort of the ultimate filmmaker's decision, like, because it makes a different film if you show that scene or that audio. And same with Lily, like, not showing that gives you a certain perspective. Showing all the details is a different experience.
Yeah, that's a really good comparison, Jen.
Yeah, it's a great film. It's a great film. And I think Warner really articulated that dilemma of what to do. And and ultimately, what are you doing? Is this entertainment? Are you showing people this world they don't know about? Like, what is the objective? Are you exploiting the situation? Because that can happen too. And it's all a very delicate balance as a filmmaker. All these micro decisions that end up with the final film that give people an impression or idea of the story, or who Lily is, or who the bear guy is.
Yeah, I just looked it up. I cheated. It's Timothy Treadwell was his name.
Yes, Timothy Treadwell.
Yeah.
He loved the bears.
Yeah, I remember that when that came out. It was like, man, this guy just wild, right? I mean, when I'm up in Alaska on a shoot and you see a bear, it's like have the gun close by, and this guy's like calling him over and petting them, and that
He's
was
like hugging the
pretty cool.
bears.
Yeah. Oh my God, I missed you so much. Yeah, pretty wild.
Oh my gosh. Well, Lily, oh my gosh, I just called you.
Lizzie.
I know it. This actually that happens all the time when we're making the film, all the time.
Lizzie,
Um,
Lily. Yeah, that's tough.
yeah.
Well, we are so excited to see all of your future projects because you are off to a phenomenal start in your career. You're obviously
Yeah.
so talented and so thoughtful. And I'm genuinely excited to see what's next for
Oh,
Lizzie.
I know you wanted to call me Lily then.
I did. I almost called you Lily.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited. I'm so glad that we met through that like sort of convoluted means of a stop and a start. But I think you're an incredible filmmaker as well. I told you when we first met that I'd watched your Happy Birthday film before I'd even gotten in touch with you.
Oh, that's
And
right. That's so sweet of you. Thank you. I love that.
and thank you so much. It was so good to meet you as well, Sean. And I'll
Yes, thank you.
have to keep an eye out for what you're working on. And I can't wait to see where this goes and see your fancy new Manhattan studios.
Yes.
Yes, we can't wait to have you there. Yeah.
The hot sheet is coming in hot.